Welcome to
One Set.
Chris, talk to us about the Delco movie. Let's get into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
The Delco movie. Okay, boy, where to begin? So the Delco the movie rather, has been a project in the making for 20 years. So about 20 years ago, I saw a movie called Clerks. It had already been out for like 9 years by that point, made by Kevin Smith. Sort of Kevin Smith is the patron saint of indie filmmakers. And so it was kind of at that point, I was like, hey, I could make a film. Like, it's actually something possible to do. I always wanted to write. I thought maybe I'll write comic books, maybe I'll write, novels. But, okay, making a movie is something that is feasible to do after watching Clerks. And so my senior year, I decided, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to write a feature movie, a feature-length film, and I'm going to shoot it and cut it together before I graduate. And everybody said that I was nuts. Like, what are you doing? That's crazy. Why would you do something like that? Why would you do something that big? And I just was very, very stubborn. And I somehow talked about like 10 of my friends in helping me make this movie over about 4 months, from February 2004 to May 2004. So if you ever saw me like running around the hallways with a camera, or like having people after school helping me with stuff, then that's what I was working on. That was the initial Delco movie. And so ever since
cool.
then,
Cool.
I've done. Did you guys ever see me working on it?
I vaguely remember there being times where like people would just be running around with a camera, and I just thought it was like film crew and stuff, like people just doing stuff like maybe like the actual like some Valley like film crew and stuff. I didn't think it was stuff that you were actually participating in.
Well, they were doing that too. They were definitely doing that too. So it could have been them as well. But I was actually doing like a full length film. And so
that's awesome.
We screened it in the auditorium. My parents went to AMC and they got like popcorn and cups and everything. They made like a really big deal out of it. It was totally life-changing. And
awesome.
So since that time, I've done a number of short films. I've done podcasts. I've done projects. I've taught for 10 years as a film and TV production teacher out of high school. So exactly the kind of class that I had that inspired me. And in all that time, I kind of never let this idea go. I'm like, I want to do like a real version of this film. I love these characters. The dialogue is terrible. I was 17 when I wrote it. So let me with my years of experience now, let me, do something that can be like a real movie. And so that's kind of what I wound up doing. So about 2 years ago, and I, for about 2 decades, I had gone through, I had maybe 5 or 6 different outlines of what it was going to be. And the things that always stayed the same were the characters, and that it was going to take place in a day. That's what I always wanted to kind of keep the same, but everything else kind of changed. Kind of whatever phase of my life I was in, the story was very, very different at that time. And so finally, I came up with like a beginning and end that I really liked. And so summer 2021, I said, you know what, it's time. I'm going to write this damn thing. I got to write it out. I can't, I need to stop just thinking about it, talking about it, just write it out. And so how I did it was I said, I had the outline. I knew how it was going to begin, how it was going to end. And I said, okay, it's a summertime. I'm a teacher. I have off in the summer. I have a little more flexible schedule in the summer.
Right.
I'm going to write 5 to 10 pages every night, and I'm not going to go to bed until I do 5 to 10 pages, something like that. Now, I missed some nights here and there, but the bottom line was that by the end of that summer, like I had a rough draft, a first draft of a feature script. And the whole idea was like, a lot of writers edit as they go along. Like we're our own worst critics as creative people. Right. And so I had to, no matter how bad it was, and no matter how bad I felt like the stories, how bad the characters dialogue was, or how bad I felt this scene was, I just had to get it out. Like you had to you have to shit out the first draft. You just have to do that.
Yeah.
And that made all the difference, and now I'm on draft 6 of it. So, the editing of it, I mean, a lot of things have changed and improved, but, the first draft is always the hardest part. So, then over the last 2 years, I've kind of been prepping for it. And I would say like really began pre-production like in December of this year. So that's when I started like putting out casting calls. In the spring, I met with a very good friend of mine named Leah Savoli, who's a actor, producer, and she also does crowdfunding. And so I had this whole plan of, here's how we're going to raise money for Delco the movie through a crowdfunding site. And it has worked. It has amazingly has worked.